In a world filled with information, where do you turn to get straight talk about retirement, investments, and your money? Lock it in to the longest running financial talk show in Arkansas and let us help you build the bridge between information and application. Real financial change begins right here, and it starts with you.
It's showtime!
Hey, welcome in. It is hard to believe this. It is our last show of June, halfway through the very tumultuous year of 2020. Our focus today, bringing your financial independence into focus, the clarity a plan can bring.
This is the Get Ready for the Future show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome in to the Get Ready for the Future show. If you're listening on radio, thank you for making us part of your weekend. We are recording live today on this Wednesday morning at 11:30 on Facebook Live and on YouTube. And we encourage you, if you're listening on radio today over the weekend, that you can catch us live. You don't have to wait for the Saturday replay, but we are glad to have you. My name is Scott Inman. Tim Key to my right.
Good morning, Scott.
He works on my team in the West Little Rock office, and owners of Gen Wealth founders John Shrewsbury and Janet Walker. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
It is a beautiful day today, by the way. Can I just bring that up? I was coming in this morning thinking for late June, this is about as good as it gets in Arkansas.
Yeah,
I don't know that we've had summer weather yet in Arkansas.
Not
just
the
like
humidity.
a day or two, that was really but that was it. And then we were back to, this is kind of nice.
We need highlights in this
Yes,
year.
we do.
2020 has been rough on us all. There's no question about that. So some nice weather and some good news today as we talk about bringing your retirement or your financial independence into focus. You know, we've been talking all month, 2 months, almost 3 months. I guess it was April 15th, right, that we began the offer to waive our financial planning fees for folks 55 and older. We know you're getting closer to retirement if you're in that age bracket, and we didn't want our financial planning fees to be any obstacle whatsoever during the pandemic. Because we know people were probably tightening their financial belts and trying not to spend anything they didn't have to spend. So we decided to waive those financial planning fees through June 30th for folks 55 and older. So we are coming to the end of that window. So we want to spend our last show here in June talking about, well, what does that plan look like? Why do you need it? What is the purpose of planning and the clarity that it can provide, bringing your retirement into focus?
Yeah, the key, I think, is understanding the why. If you don't understand why you're doing something, you don't want to do it. But there is a huge why behind financial planning that, Scott, I think that most people, it escapes them what that why is, because I don't think we've done a very good job as an industry really connecting the dots with that.
You know, you talk about what it clarifies. What does it bring into focus? And just one of the conversations that Troy and I had this week with somebody who was coming in to get their financial plan taken care of was this big, huge, nebulous question of, what does retirement income look like for me? Like, I have this pool of money, but what does that mean? And guys, it really is something that is very out of focus, if you will, for a lot of people. And that's the whole purpose of the plan, is to bring that into focus and show you very clearly what retirement can look like in terms of your income.
So we oftentimes, every Friday we have a meeting with the radio crew and marketing to kind of discuss the content plan for the week. And sometimes there are preemptive things that in our schedule don't allow us to be there. And I was not there last Friday when we discussed a story that John was going to share that would help us understand what it's like to be...
At the point of a gun, I am... you don't see it over here, but Janet has a gun, and she's making me share this story. So I live on a lake, and I enjoy going out in the evenings and being on my boat and just kind of relaxing and chilling. And I was doing that last week and minding my own business, not bothering a soul. And I think it was a horsefly. And it landed...
It was big.
It landed like right here. And it was felt like it was approaching my eye.
Okay.
And so instinctively, I swatted. And these are not my regular glasses. As regular viewers of the show will know, these look different, and the regular ones are down at the bottom of the lake. Because as I swatted, it hit my glasses, and it was gone.
Well, now this is Hurricane Lake, so it's not very deep. You could have just gone in and started
Water Moccasin Lake.
dredging for it.
Do you have any idea?
Joking.
You need to come around the block, Scott, to my house, and we'll take a tour. Okay.
It's a little murky, isn't it?
Just a little murky, just a touch. But I can vouch for how things are from and I will tell you that I had, these weren't just at the ready, and so I had to get back to the house and get in the house and find them and everything, and it was unnerving to walk around without your glasses and not be able to see what you're doing. And the fact that I live on a lake and that has snakes in it was really unnerving because it was getting dark and I was trying to get the boat home and get up in the house, and it was, So as you can imagine, it was unsettling, and that's got to be how it is for people when they think about retirement, when they think about, anything going on in their finances, anything that's going on with their money. If you don't have some clarity about it, if you don't have certainty about it, then you've got some problems, and you feel uneasy, just like I did when I was without my glasses for a period of time, and I can't wait. The eye clinic down the road here needs to get busy and get my new ones back to me.
Well, we certainly know. I'm sorry, Tim. Were you about to step in?
I was just going to say it is a blurry situation. I mean, you experienced that on the lake, but retirement's something new. You haven't experienced it before,
right?
And when you haven't experienced something before, you kind of go in with trepidation. It's just one of those things that you just don't understand exactly what it's going to look like.
The uncertainty makes it blurry, if you will.
Exactly. You just haven't been there before. And we actually were talking with a guy last week, and he was saying, I've been talking about other people at work, and how are you going to take your retirement assets once you get there, and nobody knows. They don't have a plan.
Well, and if you think about the social aspect of retirement, just the change in your day-to-day routine and the change in what you do with your time and everything, that's unsettling enough. If your money is out of focus, if it's blurry what your money situation is going to be, how are you going to replace that paycheck?
Right.
That makes that anxiety level just go sky high. And that is the one of the real benefits of planning, is that you can bring at least the financial part of that, and sometimes through the planning, the social aspects of that into focus and have more clarity.
I also think it paralyzes your decision making if you don't have a plan. If you have an accumulation of assets, and how do you know when or if you've reached the finish line and can pull the cord and release that golden parachute, as they used to talk about with our golden handcuffs with Houston Nutt, but let's don't bring that up. But yeah, I mean, how do you really know without the plan? And most people don't. Some stats will back that up. 76% of Americans are concerned they won't achieve a secure retirement. 76%, more than three-quarters. Why is that? 49% of Americans worry that they will outlive their money, and we're going to get into that in this program today too, those three big risks. But when you talk about not knowing how long you're going to live and how long your money's going to need to last, you can see without a plan, there's no way you can really know if you can reach the finish line.
So let's talk about the opportunity that people have right now. If you don't have a plan in place, we're continuing the opportunity for you to have available to you a complimentary plan. Depending on your net worth, that's normally a cost of anywhere from $500 to $1,500 to acquire the same plan that you can get for free during this period of time. We're only offering that until the end of June, so through June 30th. Let me be clear, you don't have to come in and have the appointment before then, but if you will call us and get the appointment set before June 30th, then we will go ahead and waive that financial planning fee and give you the opportunity to get some clarity and bring your plan into focus.
And Janet, since the cases of COVID-19 are escalating again in Arkansas, let us point out that we are doing everything we can to be sure that you have every opportunity to protect yourself. We have masks available. We have thorough cleaning that goes on in our office after every appointment. And we will also do appointments by video, by Zoom conference or whatever methodology works for you. I'll break out the iPhone and we'll do a FaceTime if we need to.
Yeah.
We want to help you, and we don't want the pandemic to stand in the way.
Bringing your plan into focus. That is our focus on today's Get Ready for the Future show. We're back in just a moment.
you know about saving money?
So you'll have more stuff that you can get.
So, would you rather spend money or save money? You'd rather save money?
Yeah, I would get $1 and $1 after 2 days.
Do you know what a credit card is?
Yes.
What's a credit card?
Something that has money on it. And if you cash it in, you can pay with it.
But how does the money get on the credit card?
Bill Gates.
What about a car? How much money do you think it takes to buy a car?
100.
So for $100, what would your car look like?
A pink car that has glitter all over it.
So if I gave you what would you buy with it?
Maybe a car. 2, 3 houses. 100 wood. 2,000 toys. And infinity couches.
What do you think a 401k is?
A candy bar. Okay, a wafer with chocolate syrup on top and then caramel on top and then chocolate chips.
Would you cover it in chocolate?
Yeah.
Tell me everything you know about money.
That it costs a lot and that people get only a few things. And if you save money, you can get stuff that you need.
You ain't heard nothing yet. Buckle up, because we're back with the Get Ready for the Future show.
Hey, we mentioned in our last segment about our no-cost financial planning for those 55 and older. Do want to point out one spot of clarity on that, too. If you're a couple and one of you is under 55 but one is over, that qualifies. June 30th is the deadline, so you'll want to call or email and set your appointment before June 30th. Again, as Janet mentioned, it does not have to happen by June 30th, but it needs to be on our schedule because that's when the offer ends. So you can do that if you're watching on our live stream right now by picking up the phone and dialing 501-653-7355. Again, the number is 501-653-7355. We can also get you on the schedule via email. Just send the email to info@getreadyforthefuture.com. But be sure to do it by June 30th to take advantage of this offer that we've had in place since mid-April. And we're going to talk a little bit about what the expectation should be for coming in to begin the planning process, and maybe even have time to take you through that planning process. But we're focusing today on bringing that plan into focus. And we have kind of 4 different groups. We're going to age band this a little bit because we talk about it in terms of retirement planning, retirement income planning, or financial independence, as we're fond of calling it. That is usually 90+% of the time what the plan is trying to achieve. Doesn't have to be, though. But even if it is, it's never too early to start. We want to make that emphasis right off the bat in this segment. You can get focused wherever you are, no matter how young you are. And obviously, we've talked many times on this show, guys, that the earlier you start, the better.
Absolutely. The key is the time value of money. That's a concept that they teach you in finance school, or if you take any kind of personal finance course, it is the time value of money. And Janet, I know that we have been through hundreds of examples of this, but I remember one that I was taught early on, and way back when, there was some rate of return assumptions that were probably higher than they should have been in the industry. They were like 10 or 12% or something like that. But I remember an example that said that if you take someone who is, let's say, 20, and they save $100 a month at 12%, it's like almost $1 million by the time they hit retirement age. If they wait 5 years, that it cost them $500,000 because of the lost compounding and the lost value of that money working over time.
Yeah, Albert Einstein said that compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. When you think about what he did otherwise, and in his career, he knew a little bit about power and force, but he said compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. So if you start out preparing for your retirement and getting your financial plan together as a younger person, then you have time on your side. But guys, I want to think about, we're talking about using a telescope from in that 25 to 40 year age range to really get focused on retirement. But frankly, I don't know if you guys have ever used a telescope, binoculars, whatever. Sometimes I have trouble getting them focused where I really want to focus, and I'll look at something that's much closer in the distance, to where I am than instead of something way out far, and that kind of helps me. I'll get focused there, and then I'll take it farther out. And you think about the parallel to, preparing for retirement. Frankly, if you're 25, you may not be able to even think about focusing on retirement right now. You may feel inundated by student loans, or what do I do about buying a house, or whatever it is. I would say that the important thing for you to do to get ready for retirement is focus on what's next. And it may or may not be actually putting money back for retirement. It is a question of what is the next step for you, Tim?
Yeah, I think way back when I was in college.
It's been a day or two.
Way back machine, right? In astronomy class.
Notice I'm not saying anything.
I know you're still ahead of me there. But in astronomy class, we would go out and look at through the telescopes and look at things. But when the professor actually came over and said, "Hey, let's make some changes here and make some tweaks," and all of a sudden you saw so many things that you didn't see before. Yeah. I think a lot of times, we can get started early, and that's one of the key things. But having someone that can walk beside you, is it best for a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA? How do you need to actually invest that money? Also, whether you should pay off debt and how you should go about maybe financing a house and things like that. That's where someone that can walk beside you when you're in those early years and really provide some guidance on what needs to be done.
I would say that if you are sitting there today and going, well, I can't even focus on that because I've got all this other stuff. You've got to get the chains off of you. You've got to get the weight off of you. And if that's debt, then let's get a plan together to get debt out of the way so you can focus on retirement or financial independence. Let's call it that, because I really think that that's at the heart of what everybody wants, is they want to be financially independent. So what does that mean? It means that you're able to live without having to go to work, working because you want to, as opposed to because you have to. And I think everybody can get on board with that concept. But in order to do that, you've got to get your financial house cleaned up, shaped up, and have, as Janet was talking about, a focus on things that are maybe a little bit closer in the field of vision that you can see, so you can get to those things that you would aspire to, but maybe aren't really totally in focus.
Let me say this too. If you really are in that age band and you really need some help to get started and what are the best decisions to make, I would encourage you to go back and check out our podcast from last week's show. We had Anthony O'Neill on. Anthony, if you don't know who he is, he's a best-selling author and he's a member of the Ramsey organization. He's a guy who has a fantastic, or really sad personal story, but the way he has used it to become where he get to where he is a fantastic story. He was in really bad shape, made some bad decisions when he was in college, and I think if I remember right, it ended up getting kicked out of college, didn't he? And living out of his
scholarship. Yeah, lost his scholarship, got kicked out, and was homeless. And one of the aspects of being homeless, by the way, he had parents But
Yes.
they went, you know what, dude?
Hard
you
love.
made these mistakes, and you got to live with it. Here you go.
Yeah.
And he dug his way out of that.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that way for you. You don't have to go, oh, well, I don't want to be homeless or anything. No, just take positive action for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just, take control of it. And the way you do that is you come alongside a financial advisor, you sit down, and you create a plan. A plan is not an investment. There is no correlation necessarily between investing money and a plan. A lot of people are walking around today and they think they've got a plan because they've got some investments. They don't have a plan. They have investments. A plan actually maps out, just like you would on a vacation, the path that you're needing to go down to reach your destination.
Yeah, and decisions do matter even that early in life. We
Yeah.
talk about how you pay for college being important. Are you going to be saddled with student loan debt? That's a big problem if you are. Get through college with as little or no debt as possible. And then when you get that first job, employer matters. Employer retirement plan matters. If you have an opportunity, Janet, to get into a 401k where there's an employer match, take advantage of that right away.
And sometimes you have the choice inside of that plan of making your contributions in Roth dollars or traditional dollars. If you don't understand that, get some time with a financial advisor to walk through one-on-one with you so that you know what that means for you and the difference it can have on your retirement way down the road in the future. Walk through that. And as Scott mentioned, the match is so important because that's free money. I mean, basically it is. If you put in $100, your employer is going to put in $100. According to my math, that's 100% return on your money before it's even invested. Now, that's if it's a dollar for dollar match, but even if it's 50 cents on the dollar, that's a 50% return on your money before it really even gets invested. So you've got to be sure that you understand the plan, and I would say don't be intimidated by it. Frankly, I was. When I first started working, nobody had taught me about any of that stuff, and you get this packet of information from the HR department, and they say, here, fill this out and bring it back on Friday, and there's nobody to tell you what decisions to make. And I'm telling you, the people around the water cooler don't know any more about it than you do in all likelihood. Seek out wise counsel in going through that process.
So we talked about that telescope. Let's talk about binoculars. When you get past that early start, maybe you've been accumulating and you've been saving, but you still don't have that plan in view and you need a clearer focus. The binoculars, I like this analogy too, because that's not as distant as the far-off moon. And I love that analogy because sometimes when you're in 20s and 30s, retirement can seem like it's as far off as the moon. So it's a little bit closer, but you need those binoculars to. I think about where I use binoculars was probably when I was hunting younger in life and sitting in a deer stand, right? Or looking for something, an animal moving around in the distance, and I can't tell what it is, and that helps you spot it, and it can be that elusive. Even at our age, Tim, 41 to 55 is what we're talking about here. When you're raising kids, you're just trying to get through the day. You're just trying to get the expenses paid, and that little animal is out there running around, and you need to spot it and lock it in.
It's getting a lot closer for us.
Yeah.
We're getting to that point where we can start to see some of these things that are happening, they're going to be happening in the future, and so that's where we do have to get locked in. I think about binoculars at maybe a football game or a baseball game where I wasn't able to buy the good seats, so I was up a little higher, and I wanted to get a better look at things down on the field, and so being able to bring some of that into clarity. And I think as we go and as we've been accumulating money, if we got started early, now we needed to make some decisions because we're getting a little bit closer. And some of the things that we're going to be doing with our investments are going to be making a huger impact on what our retirement may look like.
To give you a better story about the lake, I have a set of binoculars that I use on a regular basis on my deck because there's tons of wildlife out there, not just snakes, but lots of wildlife.
Eagles.
Lots of eagles and all kinds of birds and deer, and I love to sit out on the deck and check out the wildlife because it makes it more real. And I think that that's where, as you get into the 40 to 55 age range, retirement is becoming real. You're beginning to think, okay, I'm not probably going to do this the rest of my life. How can I get to that point where I can live on my money as opposed to living on my job?
Right.
And you've got to be in a situation where you can take advantage of that.
Yeah, and when you think about getting some help there and how that plan can be very helpful, you need to have a financial advisor at that point in the game for sure, and you need to be meeting regularly with that financial advisor. If you have one but you're not hearing from him at least on an annual basis, that's a problem. And we do that at least annually with our clients.
And Scott, I will also say an important thing in this age group is that you begin to pay attention to volatility in the market at this particular point in time, because you've got some money in your account and you see that money go up and down. It is the wrong thing to focus on as far as your balance is concerned. You don't want to focus on that. You don't want to focus on the day-to-day things of the market. What you do want to focus on is how much are you being able to accumulate more shares in your account, and then what is that destination? What does that look like? How do you basically create paycheck replacement? And we'll talk a little bit further about that as we get more focused into the next segment.
Yeah, Tim and I have talked about that too, that when your lump sum or your nest egg gets bigger, a 10% swing looks a lot worse.
Yes, it does.
In the wrong direction, a negative 10% swing. Okay, so we're going to get focused with a magnifying glass for those 55 and older right after this.
At Gen Wealth, one of our standards is that we value good communication. One of my favorite quotes about good communication is from George Bernard Shaw. He said, "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. If you ever doubt that, come to my house, listen to my 16-year-old son and my 13-year-old daughter having a conversation, and see what happens, because they will walk away with completely different understandings of the conversation that has occurred." It happens every time. It's okay, they're still learning communication. But here at Gen Wealth, we believe that that's something you need to experience every time you walk in our door, that you need to feel understood, that you need to feel listened to. So you'll see a change in how we're even communicating. If you're talking about something that's very serious, very personal, you'll even hear a change in our tone of voice, because that's just how good communication is supposed to be. But it also means that we can feed back to you what you've shared with us, just so you know that we're listening. We value good communication.
Question? Email info@getreadyforthefuture.com with your name, location, and question to get a response on the air from the Gen Wealth team. Now, back to the Get Ready for the Future show.
Our focus today on the Get Ready for the Future show is about bringing your plan into focus. And we've been talking about it in terms of age banding, of what stage of life, what you need to really be focused on. And building the plan is central to all of those ages. But as we move into the 55 and up bracket, or 55 plus, it's a good chance to remind you again about our free financial planning offer for folks 55 and older. It expires on June 30th. We brought this in on April 15th in the height of the pandemic that we are still currently in, knowing that folks had potentially lost income, or at the very least, even if they hadn't lost income, were more focused on tightening their belts and not spending any money that was not absolutely necessary. And our financial planning normally ranges between $500 and $1,500. So we took the initiative at that point in April to waive the fees for those 55 and older. We didn't want anything to stand in their way of building a plan for their future, and anything that could potentially disrupt their retirement if they don't plan. So those fees have been waived through June 30th. We're coming to the end of that time. So if you want to take advantage of that offer, you need to call us before June 30th. Again, as we mentioned in the program, you don't have to come in by June 30th, but you need to get it on the calendar by June 30th. The phone number is 501-653-7355. Again, it's 501-653-7355. We have offices in El Dorado, Bossier City, Louisiana, Hot Springs, Bryant, West Little Rock, and Conway. So chances are there's an advisor close to you that would love to sit down and meet with you and begin the planning process. You can also do it via email. Send it to info@getreadyforthefuture.com. And you don't need special connections, insider knowledge, or a particular pedigree to get the support you need. All you need to do is call. As we move into 55 plus, we kind of talked about this in terms of different lenses. We use binoculars for 41 to 55 because you've got that moving wildlife target out there in the midst of the chaos of your life. And we talked about the telescope for folks in their 20s and 30s because retirement or financial independence can seem as far off as the moon is from the earth. So how about for 55 plus we use magnifying glass? You know, with a magnifying glass, details are crisp. You are up close and personal with your retirement. And you are especially from an investment perspective, you are in the red zone. It is time to take another look at your investment strategy, and is it going to be what you need moving forward? Because you're moving from climbing the hill to going down the hill, accumulation into distribution.
I think that it's important for people to understand that in that red zone of retirement, in that close proximity to retirement, it's not that you have to throttle up your investments and really get great returns right at the end. What you have to do is you have to lose less money. You have to be in a position where a big downturn in the market, kind of like we had a couple of months ago, doesn't take down your retirement as far as the ability for it to generate income. You've got to be in a position where you can insulate a part of your retirement to buy you time to allow a downturn like that to pass and to recover, and to be not in a situation where you're spending more of your shares to generate the kind of income that you're talking about. And you can only do that with a plan and a strategy to make that happen. So as you approach retirement, Janet, I think it is incredibly critical that people really get serious about the planning process, because the planning process gets more detailed the more you pull out that magnifying glass and begin to look at the fine-tuning of that plan.
Remember, this is all about bringing things into focus. Your plan brings your retirement into focus. And John, one of the things that we hear regularly when we begin to ask people things like, how much income are you going to need per month in retirement? The answer 9 times out of 10 is, we hadn't thought about that yet. They haven't focused on it, if you will. They haven't taken the time to really focus on it. So I would encourage you, if you're in that 55 and up age range, you're at a point where it is time to focus. It's time to answer some questions. And it's okay to come in without knowing the answers to those. That's part of what we do in this planning process, is to work through that with you and help you get focused as you move forward. So think about the timing of your retirement. I think that's one of the first questions that you really need to consider. And has COVID-19 had an impact potentially on the timing of your retirement? And I don't necessarily mean related to your personal health, although that could be a factor there. But in many cases, businesses have changed. And do you still have employment through the time that you had thought you would retire? Is that something that you need to address again?
Yeah, COVID has definitely changed a lot of things, and has also given us a lot of time. I mean, retirement is maybe more time at home. And a lot of people were able to spend more time at home, and they were able to figure out, hey, do I like this, or do I want to be away, or what it might be. But I kind of thought back about the first time that magnifying glass, and really when I first used one. And my dad used to hunt coins with his metal detector. And he might go out and bring back, and if he found an old dime and he couldn't really see the date on it, he would bring out the magnifying glass, because it wasn't just a dime worth 10 cents. If it was older, it might have more value if it was a certain year or if it was a certain mint. And so that magnifying glass actually brought everything into clarity for him to be able to actually see that.
I think it's important, too, to say the goal here isn't simply to have more money, but to help you find ways to use the money to live the life you feel called to lead. So when you talk about crafting retirement or financial independence, it is very unique to you. And you're going to face, we talk about these all the time in the client meeting rooms, guys, the 3 big risks. We believe they're universal to all people walking into life without a paycheck, into financial independence. So let's kind of take our time through these 3 real quickly. Longevity risk is number 1. And what that means is we don't know how long we're going to live. And chances are, for sure, unless you have an underlying health problem when you walk into retirement, with modern science and modern medicine, we are living longer, and your money has to live as long as you do.
This is one, I love on this one telling the story about my grandfather when he was a very just happy, content person really all the time. And when he turned 79 on his birthday, he was just really sad and like almost to the point of being depressed. And I couldn't figure out what was going on with him. And finally, I got him to tell me, and he said, honey, my daddy died when he was 79, and I kind of figure I just had my last birthday. And, you let that soak in. That's pretty heavy. But the reality was he was healthy. And he was healthy and here another 9 years. He lived to be 88 years old and was healthy except for the last couple of weeks of his life. But in his mind, he couldn't even perceive living longer than what his dad had lived. He couldn't, as a 79-year-old man, fathom that because his dad didn't. And so you think about, we were blessed that he was able financially to care for himself the remainder of those next 9 years. But what if you're banking on dying? I mean, that's a sad statement, but there are a lot of people who will come in and talk to us really just like my grandfather did, like, there's no way I'm going to live past age X. What if you're wrong?
All right.
Yeah, that's a huge hurdle from a mental standpoint we have to get over with some people. And I think that one of the things that I try to focus people on is this concept, and Scott, you alluded to this earlier. You know, you've got this big pile of money. What does that mean? What is that going to allow me to do? Well, it's going to allow you to live life. But in order to live life, I think you've got to understand the principle of replacement. You know, when something goes bad, or when we lose something around the house, or whatever the case may be, we go get another one. We replace that, right? Mm-hmm. Well, think about it this way: you've got to replace a paycheck, because you have lived your entire life on a paycheck. That paycheck comes in every 2 weeks, or whatever the rhythm is at your job. You get that regular monthly income to your budget. Now, at retirement, you're talking about not having that job, being independent of that job. And so the first job that we have is to help you to figure out ways to replace that paycheck and figure out how much of that is going to come from Social Security, how much of that has to come from your own assets. And do you want those assets to create guaranteed income to you, or do you want to do a probability thing and say, you know, I'm going to play the odds and see how that works out? I don't know about you, Tim, but I am not too much of an odds player when it comes down to where my money's coming from.
I don't think any of the clients that we work with really want to bring on a lot of risk and running out of money in retirement. And so, they do not know how long they're going to live. And Scott and I kind of jokingly say during our meetings, if you could tell us your day to death, we could build the perfect financial plan for you.
Right.
But we do not know that. So we are definitely going to prepare a plan to at least age 90 in most cases, and maybe longer if you've got a lot of longevity in your family, because we don't want to run you out of money. But we also don't want you sitting there just living on Social Security with a big pile of money over here, kind of a what if. I mean, what can we do with that to provide the income that you need to really live retirement?
A big takeaway, Scott, that I want to be sure our listeners and viewers get from this is that there is nothing virtuous about going through the details of your finances and all of that. What you do it for, the reason you do it, is so that you can enjoy that time that you have after work. We've talked for years at GenWealth about living life long after the work is done, and think about all of the possibilities that gives you. It opens all kinds of doors for you, but you've got to be prepared for that when that comes along. And so I think that we've got to make that mental connection between the planning process, which is, you know, nothing sexy about that, nothing real attractive about, oh, let me thumb through all the statements and get all my information together. But what you're doing is you're preparing to live life, and you're preparing to enjoy the fruits of all of your labor. And so that's the why. That is why you want to pick up the phone, give us a call, sit down with an advisor, and go through this process, because it is getting you ready for your future.
You already talked about timing risk a little bit, but let's kind of hammer home on that, because I think of the comparison charts that we have. If you take a look at when people retire, that's what timing risk really is. And Janet, I think, even talked about it in the last segment a little bit. If the market goes down at the beginning of your retirement, and when you take a look at where we are now, think about somebody who may have walked into retirement in February without a plan. All they had was a collection of investments, and the market promptly in March goes down some 20, 25, 30%. Now, even if they had that balanced or diversified, Tim, we've seen the data that shows sequence risk is a matter of when you retire. You could compare a couple of people who have the same amount, and of course these are fictional people, but if you use the numbers of the same amount of investable assets, the same investment strategy, the same withdrawal strategy, and all that changed was the year or sometimes even the month that they retire. Sometimes that comparison shows one person running out of money 18 years in, and the other person has more money than they started with based on historical returns.
Exactly. If you don't have a plan, I think I read yesterday where 2/3 of the people 65 and over actually turned their investments into cash during this last few months.
Yeah.
So if they did that at the end of March when the market was at a low, they didn't get the opportunity to bring it back up, ride it back up over these last couple of months.
I gave that to you with like very few seconds
I
left,
know.
and you did a great job. Way to go. Getting out in time for the commercial break. We are on our way to the last segment after this.
The beauty of a potter's work is that each item is unique. No piece is the same. That's what makes it art. At Gen Wealth, we believe your financial plan should be unique to you. Through our process, your money is carefully shaped around your goals and dreams. Your future, artfully crafted. Call us today or visit our website and connect with us. Gen Wealth Financial Advisors.
There's always been power in standing up for what you believe in, challenging the status quo, and never accepting the ordinary. What about the rest of your life? Will you settle? Or will your retirement be more? More fun, more family than finances, more than just investments. Connect with us at Gen Wealth and harness the power of more.
A smarter, simpler, more personal approach to retirement continues with the Get Ready for the Future show.
Getting your plan into focus. That's the focus of our Get Ready for the Future show today. And we've age banded what you need to really be concerned with in your 20s and 30s and 40s. And we left off at 55 and up talking about the three big risks. You are walking in from the years of accumulating assets to now distributing that to you as income over the course of your lifetime. We talked about longevity risk being a universal risk to everyone who walks into retirement. You don't know how long you're going to live, and your money has to live as long as you do. Timing risk. Market returns matter. Whatever market cycle you walk into matters in retirement, and having the investment strategy appropriate to deal with that risk is important. And the final one is a very simple one to grasp. I think we get the most head nods in client appointments when we talk about inflation risk. Everyone has experienced the buying power of your money going down over time. But I don't think they always think about potentially living, guys, a 20-year retirement and needing that paycheck, as John, you alluded to, the income replacement in retirement to get bigger over time.
You know, the best thing about someone that has a private pension is that it's a guaranteed income stream. Let's say that you work for a big corporation, pick one, AT&T or something like that. They have pension programs, and you could have a regular monthly paycheck. The big problem with that is that the paycheck that you get, the pension check that you get on the first day is the best and the worst that you're ever going to get. Right. And so as time goes on, if that pension is adequate enough for you to live on right now, today, 10 years from now, it's probably not going to be. And if you don't have a plan for increasing your income over time, then you're going to be really struggling, and you're going to begin to live that cliche of I'm retired and I live on a fixed income. You know, the whole classic commercial that you used to see about that. And I think that is where a lot of people don't really make the connection that inflation continues even after you retire.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is you wouldn't take a job if your employer on day one said you're going to work here 20 to 30 years and you're never going to get a pay raise. There's no way you would take that job. You need a retirement plan that's going to give you a pay raise. You don't need to take that quote-unquote job in retirement to not have a pay raise.
You know, I think it's important, too, when you use that time horizon of 20 years, that's about how long, based on historical inflation rates, that it takes for you to lose about half your value.
Yeah.
I mean, you need about twice as much to buy the same things you did 18 to 20 years ago. If you are 55 and up, I want to take one more opportunity to tell you about the free financial planning offer that ends June 30th. If you walk through the Ready to Retire process at Gen Wealth, our planning process addresses all three of these big risks that we were talking about: longevity risk, timing risk, inflation risk. These are acknowledged by academia. These are not the financial industry jargon. These are people who study this and look at the numbers. We've had some of them on our program. They all recognize that every retiree will walk in facing these 3 risks, and you need a plan that takes them head on. The offer ends June 30th, but all you have to do is get it on the schedule. By June 30th, you can do it right now by calling 501-653-7355. Again, it's 501-653-7355 to set up the appointment. So our final stop here is for people at and going through retirement. And we're going to use microscope as the analogy or the selected lens to take on this. And I love this analogy too, because when you think about, well, what do you view with a microscope? You view things that are not visible with the naked eye. You can see the moon. It may be a long ways off, but you can spot it and have some view of it from the earth. But microscopic, you can't see something that is microscopic. And this is really the thing that we get into when it comes to what are you not thinking of. We get that in client rooms too. Is like, what am I not? We had that yesterday. What am I not asking you? What question am I not asking you? And that can be a long list, Tim.
It can be a long list. I mean, I think one of the big things that we want to address is the long-term care aspect of things. What happens if you're married and one of you has to have care,
right?
And you're living on, let's say, $5,000 or $6,000 a month, and $3,000 or $4,000 or more may have to be used to take care of that person that needs that care. All of a sudden, the retirement income that you're getting and living off of is more than cut in half. And so what do we do with that? So we are able to address those types of things.
Scott, you said it was a long list. We've kind of boiled it down. There's 9 mores. Your retirement should be more. It is really all about what's in this book. Now, this is not totally comprehensive. There are aspects of retirement and retirement life that are not in here. But if you want to see the fine details, you can get this book. Your retirement should be more. As a matter of fact, you can get it right now. If you're watching us on Facebook, just go into the comment section on Facebook Live and just say, I want the book, and we will send this copy of Your Retirement Should Be More out to you. Why don't we say the first 5 folks who comment live on Facebook and say, I'd like to have the book, Your Retirement Should Be More. Janet, we wrote this book because we wanted to kind of bring all of this into focus, and the financial plan does that, but this is the kind of the basis of which that financial plan and that process we call the Ready to Retire process is based on.
Yeah, it's an easy read. We're not complicated people. It's not a complicated book. In an afternoon, you can. Yeah, he's showing that it doesn't have that many pages. In an afternoon, you can go through it very easily, and it's going to speak in your language. It's an everyday vernacular type of book.
And I don't know if you can see it, but it's big print. For us old people that lose their glasses, you can still kind of get through it.
Do we still have the audio version? I know that I recorded it.
Yeah.
It was accessible. How did we get that? I don't remember.
I think you can go on Amazon and
Audible.
Thank you, Sean. Audible, yeah.
That was audible in our ears.
It was audible. Yeah, so if you don't want to read it, you can listen to it. If you can put up with me for however long it takes, a couple hours. Now, it doesn't take that long, I don't think. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, so your retirement should be more. You said 5? First 5 comments?
First 5 comments on Facebook Live.
Get a free copy.
Just drop down into the comment section on Facebook, and you get a free copy of Your Retirement Should Be More.
So we've talked about at the top of the broadcast, 76% of Americans are worried that they won't achieve a secure retirement. So what can you do to not be part of that statistic? If you are among the more than 3/4 of Americans that are worried, planning is the antidote to fear, and getting a plan is very easy during this time, as we've talked about, through June 30th. You can call now. If you're 55 and up, there is no cost to it. You can call at any time. You can take a part of the planning process at any time. But through June 30th at GenWealth, we are waiving our financial planning fees for folks 55 and up. Get that retirement, your financial independence into focus. Put a plan on paper, on purpose, and you can do it by calling 501-653-7355 or emailing info@getreadyforthefuture.com.
We've talked about all of these different things that help you see better, whether it's a microscope, a telescope, all these different levels. I think about, when we talk about vision, I think about my dad a lot. He was blind in one eye, and that meant that he didn't have depth perception. That was lots of fun when I was a little kid and Dad was driving, because he was really, he would depend on the 7-year-old or whatever age, a lot more than you would ever think that you would depend on a young child. But it was because he knew he had a very keen awareness of, let's just call it a blind spot. If you don't have depth perception and you've got a parallel park, that matters. Yeah. And so he would depend on us as kids to help him with that. You've got to think about in your retirement, what are your blind spots? And the key with a blind spot is, unlike with my dad, in most cases, you don't know that you even have them. It's just there, and it's dangerous to have a blind spot. But if you work with somebody who can see what you can't, that's the purpose of an advisor, is to help you put that plan together, to help you see what you couldn't previously see and negate those blind spots for you.
One of the things that brings clarity to this, Scott, is our process here at Gen Wealth, the Ready to Retire process. And it really begins with that conversation with Anna Olive, our new client introduction specialist. And she can actually, if you're so inclined, she can actually send you a link that actually kind of teleports you, if you will, electronically into our financial planning program. And you can go in and actually input some of your information into that financial planning program to kind of get the ball rolling, get a jump start. Now, you don't have to be an expert at it, and if you're intimidated by that, don't feel like you have to. But some people are very capable of doing that, and that is a big plus for a lot of folks. I know I did a plan for a guy the other day that had all of his stuff in there, and he was on top of it, and it made the process so much easier.
You heard that bell. That means it's time for our final thoughts. I'll just say this as a final thought. What are you saving your money for? What is the purpose of you accumulating wealth in life? Are you going to walk into retirement and use that as an emergency only, a just-in-case retirement, and live a good enough retirement, trying to just survive on Social Security and maybe a few dollars here and there? Or do you want to really use that wealth to live the retirement you want, to truly live financial independence? That requires a plan to make sure your money lives as long as you do, and getting the plan started is as simple as a phone call, 501-653-7355.
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, I really believe in our planning process. I mean, that's what we're all boiled down to is, I mean, the investments and everything else come after that. So it's an easy thing for us to talk about because we believe in it so much. And I think it's just one of those things that a lot of our clients, they don't want to have to worry about this once they walk away from their job.
Right.
They just want to know that paycheck's going to be in their account every month, coming from their investments and whatnot. And I think that gives us the satisfaction of being able to do that for our clients.
My final thought is, don't live under the false sense of security that you have a plan if all you have is a cluster of investments. You may have lots of money and you may have lots of investments, but if you don't have a written plan that you can go to, sit down and open up and say, okay, this is how I'm going to get to retirement, you need to call us, 501-653-7355.
I would just say that planning isn't hoping for the best, it's making it happen. So if you're ready to make it happen, give us a call. We'll help you get your plan together.
So we hope that maybe we've helped urge you to begin the planning process. If you haven't, you can give us a phone call to begin that process and get your plan into focus. We're halfway through 2020. Hard to believe. We'll see you in July for the next Get Ready for the Future show.
The Gen Wealth Financial Team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com or call our offices at 501-653-7355. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Gen Wealth Financial Advisors is an Arkansas-registered investment advisor with securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC.